And with that, let's dive into some of the meat and the content. So, real briefly, just for background on me, if you haven't met me before, please come find me or meet me afterwards today. But I've been involved with WebRTC for several years now. Run a blog called webrtcHacks where we focus on giving high quality technical content for developers. I'm also involved in running some events with Google around WebRTC, again aimed at developers and helping people get up to speed. And I run a group that deals with things, new communications APIs and WebRTC at a VoIP wholesaler called Voxbone. So how many of you have, maybe it'd probably be easier to ask, how many of you, this is your first time at WebRTC Boston? Okay, actually a good chunk. And how many of you have worked with WebRTC for less than a year? Pretty good. So that's actually pretty exciting to see a good mix of new people. So I'll start out and I'll give a really brief background on what WebRTC is and how we got here. I don't want to take away from the other speakers and a lot of the other great content, but just to put things in context. So WebRTC is now 5 years old. Google had acquired a bunch of companies with various different assets, video, audio codecs, a media engine, worth somewhere between $70 and $90 million, depending on how you want to do the accounting, and turned around and open sourced that into this project called webrtc.org. At the same time, they took that and they brought it to the standards bodies, the W3C, which standardizes the World Wide Web, and the IETF, which does a lot of the on-the-wire protocols, and said, can we turn this into a kind of a new age voice over IP standard around this project? And WebRTC, it comprises of three main APIs, right? There's a stream capture API that allows you to grab camera, microphone, even screen or parts of a screen for screen sharing. There's a peer connection API that allows you to do peer-to-peer connectivity for real-time communications between 2 points. And then there's also this data channel, which is often forgotten about, but data channel actually allows you to do peer-to-peer data. And there's a lot of exciting applications coming out of that that have nothing to do with voice and video. All right. And one of the great things about WebRTC is they really focused on utilizing the state-of-the-art technology and making this very accessible to developers as part of the open source project. So when you use WebRTC, you're really, in a lot of ways, getting the best of what VoIP has to offer today. And as a result, it's actually formed into a massive community out there. So beyond just the core webrtc.org project, there's a huge number of open source projects and other community groups that are using WebRTC now. I'll talk a little bit more about them. All right, so in general, this is all pretty awesome. I'm really excited to see so many new developers and new people getting involved in WebRTC too. So, actually I'm missing one of my slides, but one of the newest users or applications that uses WebRTC is Duo. And if you guys heard of this, new Google application for one-to-one video calling. This is based on the WebRTC engine. It's a highly tweaked WebRTC engine for their application. That's pretty exciting. I lost my slide up here that had it, but another very big application is it's Facebook Messenger. And actually, they recently announced that they had over 300 million active users of the WebRTC voice and video product inside Messenger, right? And this is in less than they've had this project for 5 years, but actually they've only really been pushing it for a couple of years, right? So that's pretty significant. And these are active monthly users, right? So it's not someone who just used it once. These are users that actually use it at least once a month. That probably makes them by far the largest WebRTC user out there, even probably ahead of Google. You can see in some of the past meetups, and actually I've had some speakers from Google talk about how WebRTC is used inside Google in the past, and it's not just Duo, it's Hangouts, it's Chromecast, uProxy, and Google Play services, and a bunch of other offerings too. All right, so And this is a report card that Google gave on its 5-year anniversary, but they're actually pretty big numbers, right? 2 billion WebRTC browsers, basically every Android phone, every Chrome browser, every Firefox browser runs this. They reported, and this is just data based on the Chrome browser and Android browser usage, more than 1 billion minutes per week, right? Close to 1,000 companies now, right? And billions of app downloads. So with that background, let's give a quick update where we are with browser support. So I mentioned Chrome, Firefox, Opera. Basically, anyone who uses the Chromium engine is in good shape and uses WebRTC. Usually the big questions and one of the bigger items has always been Microsoft and Internet Explorer. Microsoft's strategy with WebRTC is actually to build WebRTC into the Edge browser, which is only available on Windows 10. They are making pretty good progress there. This is their latest status report. If you go to modern.ie, you can see and filter on various different categories to see their support here. So they're making progress there. It is a little bit difficult for especially those of you that have a big audience that uses Internet Explorer. There is no support for WebRTC, native support for WebRTC inside Internet Explorer. Microsoft is not planning to add support there. They want you to upgrade to Windows 10 and use Edge, right? And they're pushing people to do that. And I'd say, certainly probably there's always complaints, but they're making progress there on doing that. But certainly the larger user base is still on Internet Explorer today, and it's going to take some time. In addition, though, they are doing things like adding WebRTC support. They'll have WebRTC support as part of their Skype. They actually already have this for Skype for WebRTC, and building this into some of their APIs around Skype for developers. Even more exciting, I think, recently they've announced a couple different code bases and initiatives to add native WebRTC support to Windows for .NET developers as part of their universal Windows platform. And this is there. So overall, report card for Microsoft, I guess, is getting a lot better, minus the sore spot. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for Apple. Apple is a real pain in the butt when it comes to WebRTC for a couple of reasons. They don't support it in Safari, which maybe you don't care about Safari, but if there's a lot of users with MacBooks, and particularly on iOS, where Safari is the dominant browser, this makes things hard. Apple's even worse on a part of their policies. If you develop a native app and you want to use their web view needs to be based on their WebKit engine, which does not support WebRTC. This also means that if you're Chrome, Chrome invented WebRTC, actually Chrome on iOS does not support WebRTC because they have to use Apple's web rendering engine, right? And this makes things very hard. So as a result, if you want to use WebRTC on mobile, it is very possible. We'll talk about some. I think we'll touch on that a little bit tonight. But it basically comes down to implementing a native mobile app that wraps the WebRTC. And that's still harder, certainly than writing a couple JavaScript APIs, but that is getting much easier. I won't say it's trivial, but it's way easier than it used to be. And for Safari, at least there is some hope here. So Apple actually has started a project within WebKit to add WebRTC features. Apple being Apple will never tell anyone when that will actually hit the market or be done. But at least it's in the works and likely something that's going to happen in the not too distant future when they decide to actually bundle in that capability into Safari and make that part of native iOS. So now I think it's actually a really good time because there is kind of a really great time to get involved with WebRTC, knowing that it's going to be really, really easy to do in probably a year or so. Standards-wise, there's a couple of different actual specs that define WebRTC. The media capture that I talked about that defines how you get the camera and microphone, that is effectively done. It's a candidate recommendation. The other main spec that defines the peer connection and data channel, this is still a working draft. It's been a perpetual working draft for a long time. The longer you wait, the more things change inside JavaScript that requires you to go back and change the specs. The good news, though, is it doesn't really matter. The specs aren't done, but no one really cares. At the end of the day, WebRTC is doing very well. Facebook certainly didn't wait till the specs are done and all the standards until Apple supports it, and they have 300 million users on a technology they really only started using a couple years ago. And if you compare WebRTC to other technologies, other VoIP technologies in the past, I mean, it's blowing it out of the water. You could probably compare against adoption of other sorts of technology too. I'd say it's doing fairly well. And at least the open source community, I'd say even the closed source community is behind it there too. I mean, this is a shot I pulled back in September, or actually August of GitHub, the number of new code contributors that are contributing WebRTC code every month, right? This is not an aggregate. This is just number of new ones, right? And you can see it's certainly a good sign when you see up and to the right.